Triple H finally broke the silence, and what he revealed shook the very core of the wrestling world. The death of Hulk Hogan wasn't just another tragic loss, it became a mirror reflecting the darker truths about an industry that glorified pain, romanticized suffering, and often abandoned its legends once the lights dimmed. It began quietly, on a heavy Friday morning, with a stark internal email sent to WWE employees titled simply, "Loss of a Legend." Within minutes, the world knew. And as headlines erupted and fans gasped, a different kind of tremor began rumbling through the halls of Titan Towers. It was the silence. Thick, suffocating, almost accusatory. At the center stood Paul Levesque, Triple H, the man responsible for guiding WWE's future while trying to reconcile the ghosts of its past. For 3 days, he said nothing. No tweets, no press releases, no camera-friendly statements. He waited, not out of strategy but necessity. When he finally stood before a press corps at the WWE Performance Center, there was no glitz. He looked aged, worn, humbled. His words weren't carefully crafted PR. They were a confession, raw and trembling. He didn't eulogize Hulk Hogan as the immortal icon. He stripped away the myth and spoke of Terry Bollea, the man who gave everything and received almost nothing in return. He told of messages Hogan had sent, not direct cries for help, but cryptic signs of exhaustion and pain, of feeling discarded. The kind of texts you ignore until it's too late. Triple H admitted what no executive in wrestling history ever had the courage to say publicly, that they failed him. That they used his image, his name, his legacy for nostalgia pops, ratings boosts, and ticket sales while never offering him a sustainable safety net. He then read from a letter Hogan had written 2 weeks before his death, never shown in full, but haunting in the portion he shared. Hogan didn't ask for monuments or Hall of Fame rings. He asked to matter. He begged for change. He predicted that if no action was taken, someone would die under WWE's watch. Triple H's voice cracked, his hands shook, and the entire room froze. The truth wasn't Hogan's death. The truth was the silence that preceded it, and the industry's pattern of ignoring pain until it became tragedy. He detailed how Hogan had undergone multiple secret surgeries, battled heart complications, and faded in plain sight, all while not being under WWE's wellness radar because he wasn't active talent. It was a loophole that cost a man his dignity and, in the end, his life. Triple H vowed reform, a new wellness program not just for contracted legends, but for anyone who once walked the WWE path. But even as he made promises, he admitted the guilt would remain. For Hogan, change came too late. Then, in a moment no one predicted, Triple H returned to Raw 2 weeks later, walked into the ring without fanfare, and addressed the crowd not as a performer, but as a human being. With no script, he asked for forgiveness. He spoke to the camera, to Hogan's children, to every forgotten legend, and made a vow that every wrestler who ever laced boots would be remembered, seen, and supported. It wasn't just an apology, it was an industry-wide reckoning. Meanwhile, the world outside responded with a mixture of rage, grief, and urgency. On social media, fans exploded with hashtags condemning WWE's neglect. Wrestlers, both past and present, broke their silence. Randy Orton was caught on a leaked backstage video whispering that maybe Hogan's catchphrase had always been a disguised cry for help. John Cena posted a photo of himself as a child in a Hulkamania shirt. Roman Reigns broke a year-long Twitch silence to admit he thought he had more time. Even younger talents like Montez Ford wept during interviews. The raw emotional fallout exposed decades of systemic oversight. Kevin Nash's rage boiled over on his podcast as he demanded accountability. Shawn Michaels condemned the industry for making icons beg for dignity. And just when it seemed like the silence had reached its loudest point, Brooke Hogan shattered it with a video that went viral across the globe. Tear-streaked and trembling, She rejected WWE's tribute package and painted a devastating portrait of her father's final months. How he lived in pain, how he made calls that were never returned, how he just wanted to feel seen. She directly called out unnamed WWE officials, saying they knew who they were. And the world listened. Nick Hogan followed with his own words, less poetic, more furious. Sitting in a dark ESPN studio, he accused WWE of exploiting his father until he broke, then discarding him like a costume no longer needed. He said the only one who spoke truth was Triple H, but admitted it had come too late. As WWE scrambled behind closed doors, sponsors grew wary. Shareholders demanded answers. And into the firestorm walked Tony Khan, AEW president, who honored Hogan not with branding wars but with a vow. On live television, he announced AEW would launch its own Legends Fund to care for aging wrestlers regardless of company affiliation. The crowd roared, and in that moment, the wrestling world saw who had taken the moral lead. WWE, now backed into a corner, leaked documents confirming the creation of a new legacy board including veterans like Shawn Michaels and Booker T, but the leaks revealed something even more chilling. 6 other legends had asked for help before Hogan's death, including Jake, the Snake, Roberts and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. None had received responses. Hogan's passing was no longer just a personal tragedy. It became a warning. The Royal Rumble weeks later opened with an empty spotlight and 30 seconds of silence. No commentary. Then, the first chords of "Real American" echoed. The arena didn't cheer. It stood. Some cried. Wrestlers backstage, from Roman Reigns to Rey Mysterio, watched in silence. They were no longer just performers. They were witnesses to an era's collapse. The silence that once suffocated now demanded change. Triple H's voice, once shaky, had become the echo of truth. And in quiet corners of WWE, things were beginning to shift. Not because of strategy, but because something sacred had been lost. And for the first time, the wrestling world realized the cost of forgetting those who carried it.